Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass. Thank you for watching this Ag Forecast, brought to you by Agrible, the makers of Morning Farm Report. Our software gives growers the insights to make the best decisions possible about their operations. Well, I thought we'd start off by taking a look at the last 72 hours of total accumulated snowfall. And I'll be honest with you, our longer range forecast models did a pretty darn good job with this last system that went through the middle part of the country. You can see we had a significant band basically stretching back through most of Nebraska, getting into parts of Iowa, then really cutting hard through here, southern Minnesota and Wisconsin, where we saw between 6 and in some locations well over 12 inches of snow. And this caused some major problems with traffic. And then as that big low pressure system finally moved on off to the east, we even saw some extra precip in the last day or so that kind of came right through the eastern part of the Corn Belt. I spent some time flying right over the top of this. I got to spend the beginning of the week down in North Carolina, down there talking ag with those folks, and then got to get up here into Fargo and really flow right over the top of that snow. But I know that snow strained a lot of folks, and it's important to see this right now at this time of year because as we've been doing, we've been talking about where we've stood so far with winter precipitation. So let's just kind of make sure this is really clear. The one thing I want to point out here is that the good news is that we've been wetter than average in terms of total winter precipitation across one of the driest locations of last year. So this is good. We're helping that drought recover. We discussed in the last video how parts of the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma and parts of Kansas, some locations in here have not seen precipitation since the beginning of October of last year. And as I keep stressing, I say, this dryness that we see south and east of the primary Corn Belt, it's just something we have to watch. We just watch it all winter. You let me watch it. If I'm still talking about it and it's the end of May, then we have to get concerned. And there's been some great conversation the last week, especially with Scott Irwin at the U of I, discussing, he did some great research, and this proves exactly what we found, when I look at this as well, is that, wintertime precipitation does not correlate with, summertime precipitation. Boy, if it did, that'd be a lot easier on me to do long-range forecasting, but it doesn't. But the thing is that we've had some years where our really big deficits in Great Plains precipitation survives our spring rains. And if it does survive, we just have to watch it. So I just want you to know I'm watching it closely. Overall, though, we're looking pretty good outside of this area here, but this is a big deal for a hard red winter wheat to be watching. So I just want to kind of make that very clear. You let me watch and worry about this, and we'll move forward into spring and watch it together. All right, now here's the latest look from the GFS model out in the next 10 days. The West Coast, we've got a couple of strong onshore events. So you can see here we have a lot of coastal precipitation, a lot of precipitation coming to the mountains. And trust me, we need this. We need to get that snowpack up in the mountains so that we have it there for the spring melt and the summer melt for irrigation. So we're in deficit in a lot of the coastal areas, so this is good. Our next 10 days, we've got a few strong onshore flow events bringing in that precipitation. But really, we right now at least lack over the next week. So basically from Thursday now to maybe next Thursday, any indication of any big weather system going through the middle part of the country. So you can largely see here that the models are picking up on a drier bias in through here. Now there's something we're watching right around the beginning of February that could potentially kick off another big winter storm that goes across the Midwest, kind of like what we saw a few days ago, maybe positioned a little bit farther toward the Ohio River Valley. But I want you to know there is something. There's a wave we're watching right now way out in the Pacific Ocean. It's way out there, almost in Japan. Keeping a close eye on it as it translates through the flow, gets here at about maybe 8 to 10 days from now, and what it might do to the Midwest. We're going to keep this Ohio River Valley area wet, it looks like, through the month of February. Now, the southeast, you will be getting some precip out of the next couple of systems that come through. In fact, watch it again. You see, you start off dry, but this is Friday and a Saturday, Sunday, Monday, right through there. We have a system that's coming through that's going to be bringing some coastal precipitation. But the second round that you see in this area, this is coming with that system I'm concerned about coming in. You'll see it again here, right around the very beginning of February, talking about Groundhog's Day here. So, be very interesting to see the position of that system. So, keep an eye on that as we kind of move forward here. Now, if we just step back and say, okay, what's the overall flow doing? What are the big picture things we got to be on the lookout for? I'll tell you this, for the next 7 days, it's a bit of a roller coaster, but then it seems as though the pattern's going to lock back into this configuration by the time we get into the start of February. So let's kind of take a look at it piece by piece. If we get in here, let's start on Thursday. Look at this nice little ridge builds across the Corn Belt. We're going to be getting a nice rebound in temperatures as we finish off this week, but look at the broader trough feature coming into the West Coast. That's what's funneling that moisture in here, bringing in the precip, which again is much needed. period. Now, as we see here, by the time we get into the weekend, the warm-up we got toward the end of the week will kind of be stymied as we get into the weekend as a trough goes through the northern part of the corn belt. This is not a deep trough, though, but you will probably be able to see some snow showers across the northern tier states because of this. But watch this. I told you the ride continues. Look, another ridge builds out west, and that ridge tries to push again. This is Tuesday the 30th, pushes again into the middle part of the country. So that's another warm-up. So we just go up, down, up, down. But what the models are trying to do is by the end of the month, so this is January 31st, getting into the 1st of February, the models are honing in on a trough that might go sweeping through the Great Plains. And this will be the trough that I'm going to be watching for the potential development out ahead of it. What I'd like to see, if we want to see another big system go through the Agrible valleys, I want to see this dig a little deeper with a broader ridge kind of coming over the east coast. If that happens, that changes the tilt of this trough and really gives us a better shot at developing a big low. As it looks right now, the models are trying to suppress that, but there's so many days in advance before we get there. It's too far out to really kind of pinpoint anything down. So let's just look at the pattern. Once we get into February, watch this. The models are kind of hinting on the development of a larger ridge. It's going to push a lot of warm air up along the west coast. Now, if that does that, there's also a stratospheric response to this. It also changes the overall flow of the jet stream and tends to produce a couple of large troughs on either side of it. And when this pattern gets stuck like this blocking over here tends to kind of allow for maybe several days of below normal temperatures really centered around the Hudson Bay. How far south that cold air penetrates is still kind of up in the air. The models have been all over the place. We're trying to pick up on how far south that cold air gets. So we need to watch how this ridge builds out west. That'll, of course, dry out the west, but we'll be watching this broader trough here and the little systems, the clipper systems go around it once we get into the beginning of February. And so I guess my overall conclusion here is that by the time we get to the start of February, we do need to be watching for maybe what I'd call winter round 2. Maybe that's best seen with this animation. This is a look at the 18Z GFS run on Sunday showing you temperature anomalies for the next 10 days. So this gets us 1 day past Groundhog's Day. And if you watch this, look at that. We start to see as we get into Thursday, Friday, the big pulse of warmer air coming in on that ridge. But then as the trough settles in on Saturday, we do see kind of a rebound back towards some cooler temperatures, especially across the northern tier states, cooler than average at least. But as I said, we have another ridge that kind of builds in the start of next week, and there it is, bringing in some heat again. When I say heat, by the way, remember this is winter, so we're talking about, just brief warm-ups. But you can see that it just pulsates across the country. So when it's warm in the center states, the west, or both the west and the east tend to be cooler than average. But then what we do see is that by the time we get into the start of next month, look at that, we have a pretty good cold push coming down. The models have been pretty consistent with this, dropping in some cool air again to start off the month. It's going to be the question is the staying power of that cool air, and it's a bit up in the air right now as to how long we think it's going to stick around. Okay, I really want to get more to the bigger market story here, and that's what's really going on in South America. And I want to focus primarily on Argentina. Quick bit about Brazil. The drying out that we've seen in Brazil's growing regions, this has not been a bad thing. Okay, they're in harvest. It's a good time for them to dry out, allows them to get a lot of field work done. They had a great amount of rain during the growing season. La Nina was weak. It really prevented from the major disruption of the Brazilian monsoon, except for the slow start to it. But we've talked about that extensively. I want to point out a couple regions to you. When you're looking down here, this is Paraná, Rio Grande do Sul. We've kind of had a bit of a split here on precip. Now, Paraná, as they move toward their harvest of their first soybean crop, they've been extremely wet. They should, on average, be around 500 millimeters of precip, since the end of October, beginning of November, and they're closer to 700. So that's a pretty big wet bias, and that's going to cause some problems as they attempt to get in the fields. And you got to just remember, when you've got this much rainfall, okay, look at all these events, all these rainfall events. We are basically putting a lot more cloud cover into the sky, and that increased cloud cover, well, you know what that does to the soybean plant. This is just a lot of clouds preventing a lot of solar radiation getting down there to those plants, and so that's a concern coming out of this southern Brazilian growing region. Now, to kind of flip over to Argentina, we know we're going to be watching Buenos Aires province, we're going to be watching Cordoba and the surrounding areas. We've kind of seen basically this scenario setting up. There has been some regional dryness, and when the precipitation does come in, it's not giving everybody a nice soaking rain. It's hit or miss. Some folks are getting absolutely slammed with precip and others are not. So for example, in Buenos Aires, down here we had a wet, November and early December, then it's turned dry ever since. But occasionally, big rainfall events come in. So that's good if your soil can hang on to that. But we do know that some of the soil down here, it's not like Corn Belt soil all over the place. They do have great soil, but we might have some trouble hanging on to these big rainfall events that have happened at least recently. So that's important to watch. And it's important because if we kind of put it in the context of the last week and then look forward, you'll see what I'm talking about here. So let's animate this. I want you to keep your eye right here. Okay, let's just watch right in through this area. So Buenos Aires, Cordoba, and then getting into Uruguay and southern Brazil. As we animate, this is the last week's worth of precip. Look, we have a few systems that go through parts of Argentina's big growing area, but we also have several days of dry. But when these precip events come in, some of them are light, some of them are very focused with heavy rain on some locations. And so this is just, you just saw it there, this was a week of hit or miss. A week of hit or miss, and that's important to see and understand. Now, what are we looking at in terms of the near-term forecast? Well, look, we are building some precip back into parts of Mato Grosso, Goiás, in this area. So this is harvest time. This is above average rainfall for the next 10 days as forecast by the European model. So this could hamper harvesting efforts. But look at this. We see drier conditions as we stretch down into Brazil's southern growing region, getting down into Argentina. Now, the dryness you see here is not good. Very wet in the northern parts of Argentina. We grow a lot of peanuts up in this area. So this is a lot of precip there, but also corn and soy grown up here as well. But, this is, we wouldn't want to see this drier conditions hanging on for a while. And I'll tell you this, the long range models are picking up on a drier signal. So we've got some mixed kind of signal coming out of Argentina. We gotta watch this closely. And why I'm really concerned about this dryness you see here is because of this next animation. Now this is going to show you the next 7 days. I just want to take you out 7 days in 6-hour increments showing you temperature anomalies. And if you kind of keep a focus right here in Argentina, while they do have occasional cooler than average weather coming in, where you see these reds popping up here, we're talking about afternoon temperatures that are above 40 degrees Celsius. And so that's way into the triple-digit heat in terms of Fahrenheit. Got multiple days where we're going to be stressing the temperatures well above or well outside of their normal range in this area. So if no rain comes in, triple-digit heat, we're talking about rapid evaporation. And as we kind of push later into the season with that soybean crop there and with the first crop corn down there, this is just some untimely stress. So that's, I think, going to be our story when the markets are watching the longer range weather forecasts here. And we got to keep a close eye on this as we continue to move forward through the South American growing season. But with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this forecast video. Hope you found what I just had to talk about insightful and useful. But I look forward to kind of giving an update on all of this coming out again on Sunday night. So I look forward to talking to you again with our next ag forecast coming out on Monday. To get Morning Farm Report for your operation, complete with a daily email that shows you a snapshot of field conditions each morning, go to morningfarmreport.com. Sign up for that free account. Full grower accounts are free if you sign up for a Sustainable Yield Program or for growers who work with 80 merchandisers. Again, look forward to talking again early Monday morning.